Hi, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to be checking out 5 classic blues licks that come from pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. So the 5 licks that we're going to be learning is this. Is going to be lick 1, lick 2, classic bit of a Hendrix vibe, lick number 3, another all-time classic, lick number 4, and lick number 5. All of those are real classic licks. So let's get to a close-up and check out how to play them one at a time. So lick number 1. Very cool lick and some really interesting little techniques going on in this one. So we're starting off with the 3rd finger in the 8th fret of the thinner string. And we do a tone bend. Now we make sure that we mute that note with the picking hand before we release the bend. Then we're going to play that note again, and this time we're going to do a blues curl, which is just a very little bend. It's not like a proper big bend like we've been looking at before. It's not like that. It's one of those little, it's like an accent. Very common in the blues. So tone bend, mute, curl, mute, and then the 5th fret of the thinner string again with the 1st finger, and we're going to put some vibrato on that. We're going to be talking about techniques for vibrato very soon, so if you struggle with the vibrato, just play the note straight for now. Tone bend, curl, and then finishing on the root note. Now the count for the rhythm would be 1, 2, and 3, 4. 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 It's an all-time classic lick, that one. Really very useful. Okay, lick 1, picking hand. So we're going to use a down pick on the 1st note, the tone bend. Then we mute with the outside part of the palm. I'm exaggerating it there so you can see it. Normally would just be that. It's just that little motion like that. If I do this ever, it's just exaggerating to show you. But the actual motion, down, mute, relax the bend, play it again with another down pick. For the curl, mute, relax the curl there, and play that finishing note. Down, mute, down, mute, down. So lick number 2. We're starting off with the 3rd finger in the 7th fret of the 3rd string, and we're going to do a tone bend. Mute that before we release it, and then we're going to drop straight down onto the 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and we're going to be putting some vibrato on that one. Okay, so again, we're going to be looking at vibrato in a lesson very soon, but to start off with, just 7th fret, 3rd string, tone bend, mute, release, 1st finger in the 5th fret. If you want to start looking at some vibrato, just remember that the vibrato is going up and down. See the way it's kind of similar to string bending there? It's using that little pivot. Okay, tone bend. Really important to get the mute again. Bend, mute, 1st finger. And the rhythm for this would normally be 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. You can hear the bend. You're muting it with the picking hand as soon as you've played it. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. Okay, the picking for lick number 2, again, very simple. Down pick, mute with the outside part of the palm, and release the bend. Then play the 2nd note with another down pick. Okay, remember it's quite subtle. That's it, it's just that little motion there that mutes the string. Okay, lick number 3. Great lick this. So we're starting here with the 3rd finger in the 7th fret of the 3rd string, backed up of course with the 2nd finger. We do a tone bend, mute it with the picking hand, release. 1st finger goes down in the 5th fret of the 2nd string, then kind of folds over. This is called a roll. If having any problems doing this kind of rolling thing, then check out the rolling technique. Okay, there's a whole lesson on doing this rolling technique on my website. So have a look at that. So bend, first finger goes down, rolls over onto the thinner string, and then third finger is going down in the 8th fret of the 2nd string to do a tone bend. Okay, it's a little bit tricky this lick, but it's such a classic. Okay, bend, tone bend, mute, first finger rolls over onto the thinner string. You can hear that they're separate, right? That's what I mean. If you just do a little bar, you get them ringing together. You want to try and keep the pressure just on the 2nd string, and then when you roll it over onto the thinner string, the 2nd string is actually muted. Okay, because the tip of the first finger is lifted up just a tiny bit, and then third finger down for that bend. 1 triplet, 2, 3, 4. 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 So the picking for lick number 3, we use a down pick on the first note, mute all of the strings with the outside part of the palm, then we use an up pick on the 2nd string, and then a down pick on the thinnest string, and then another down pick on the 2nd string for the bend. Mute, release. Down, up, down, down, mute. Down, up, down, down, mute. It's important to note how subtle this little mute is here, especially if you're going to do this lick fast. You don't really even see it. It's just a very subtle, there's the bend, just does that. It's just that tiniest little movement. The hand should be sitting just above the string, so it's only a small movement to mute it. Can you see it's just doing that little bounce? Down, mute, up. Down, mute, up. Down, mute, down, down, mute. So lick number 4. Okay, so we're starting here with the 3rd finger in the 8th fret of the 2nd string, tone bend. Mute that note before we release the bend. First finger sneaks down to the 5th fret on the thinner string. Then 3rd finger goes back down on the 8th fret and flicks off to the 1st finger. Okay, now this one's going to require a bit of stretch, but this is the point of this lick being here, is to force you into getting used to 3rd finger to 1st finger. Being able to do that, okay? 3rd finger at the 8th fret on the 2nd string, flicking off to 1st finger in the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and then back on the bend. So bend, 5th fret on the thinner string, 3rd finger goes down the 8th fret of the 2nd string, flicks off to the 1st finger in the 5th fret of the 2nd string still, and then the bend. 1, 2 triplet, 3, 4. 1, 2 triplet, 3, 4. 1, 2 triplet, 3, 4. 1, 2 triplet, 3. Now one of the really cool things about this lick is that you're actually bending to the note that you play next. So here, that bend is bending to that note. That's the same one. If you did this exercise, that note, 10th fret on the 2nd string, it's the same note as the 5th fret on the thinner string. So when you do the bend, it's actually bending to that note. Really good exercise is just bending and then playing that. It's kind of a good blues lick in itself. It'll really help you get used to bending that note in tune properly. Okay, lick number 4. We've got a down pick on the first note, muting it with the outside part of the hand, up, down, flick off down, mute, down, mute, up, down, flick off, down with the bend. Now lick number 5's got a little bit of a different thing going on here. Now what's going on here is a little curl on this note here, which is, funny enough, it's the same as this note here that we did the curl. If you remember back to lick number 1, we put that little quarter tone bend there. Now this note is also a lovely one to put a little curl on, blues curl. So we start here, first finger 5th fret of the thinner string, then we do 8th fret to 5th fret, flick off, you could use your 3rd finger or your little finger, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Then 3rd finger 7th fret on the 3rd string, back to 5th fret on the 2nd string with the 1st finger, and then it's going to roll over and do a curl. It's going to push the string up just a little bit. It's not like trying to do a string bend. It's just a curl, and then we finish on the root note, which is this 7th fret of the 4th string with the 3rd finger. So it's this. Some people prefer to do the curl pulling down. That's okay too if you wanted to go. But I find it hard to go from the 2nd string onto the 3rd string and then pull it down. Just it feels counterintuitive. Whereas moving from here, kind of rolling it onto the 3rd string. From here, roll it onto the 3rd string and then push it up and reach over for that root note. Lick number 5 picking, I use a down pick on the 1st note, down pick on the 2nd note, flick off, down on the 3rd string, up on the 2nd string, down on the 3rd string again for the curl, mute, and a down pick on that last note. So down, down, flick off, down, up, down for the curl, mute, and then a down pick on the last note. Down, down, flick off, down, up, down, down. So the most important thing you can do now is put these licks into practice. Now the best way is repetition. So what I'd recommend you do is you go and find your 12-bar blues backing track in the key of A and then practice lick 1 over and over again over the backing track, okay? See how many different ways you can play it, explore it a little bit. And when you start to get a bit bored, because most of my backing tracks are 5 minutes, which would be a very long time to play one lick for, play it for a little while. When you get a bit bored, maybe try something else. Maybe play a bit of your scale again and just break out of doing the same stuff and maybe go into doing a bit of string bending. String bending is great practice to do over a backing track because it'll really help you do your string bending in tune. Do that for a little while and then maybe go into lick number 2. Play lick number 2 a few times and see how many different ways you can play lick number 2 and how, you know, work a little bit on your vibrato when we've covered that in the next lesson. So you might be working on your vibrato a bit, you'll be working on your string bending, and then try and maybe mix lick 1 and 2 together. So play lick 1, then a little bit of alphabet, and then lick number 2. Okay, it's really important that you're putting them into practice as much as you can. It's such a big deal that you're using them. And the best way to do it is just to play it over backing tracks. Playing it by yourself is fine, but you'll feel like it's a lot more musical when you do it over a backing track, over some already bluesy style music. It'll feel more bluesy, it'll give you more of the spirit of it. And again, I think it's a lot more fun to be doing it over a backing track, and just playing the one lick by yourself in your bedroom's not really very inspiring in it. Keeping it exciting and keeping it fun is really where it's at, because it'll inspire you to keep going with the course. So really working on those 5 blues licks. Next lesson we're going to be looking a bit more at vibrato, which you will find helpful for the licks, but don't worry about the vibrato too much at this point. Just working on, most important thing at this point is working on your string bending, getting it in tune, making sure your technique is good, and using it in the words that you've learned already. So I'll see you for another lesson very soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye bye.